Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of What We Do in the Shadows, Gail. And I really enjoyed this episode. It had very strong A storyline and B storyline that dovetailed into the A storyline. So, we start off the episode and see that Nandor has been acting kind of funny lately, and that he's like going around at odd hours, telling the cameras to like fuck off and stay off of him, taking off his mic and everything, and they're like going out and like leaving the premises, and they're like, what's going on? So we get them trying to figure out what he's going to, and they track him down to like this hotel, and they go in and we see that Nandor is having sex with this woman named Gail. And we get the information that this has been Nandor's on-again, off-again romance for like 40 years. And she's into Bob Seger. And that he keeps proposing to her to becoming a vampire, and she keeps turning him down. And we see that Nadja's like, I got no problem with Gail, even though Laszlo and everybody's like, she just hates her for some reason. And try to be like, oh, they're two women, it's all that. Nadja's like, no, I don't have any like feelings one way or the other about Gail as a person. She just keeps fucking over Nandor, and she doesn't like that. I'm like, that's even though they kind of play this bit off as kind of like a joke, it's really nice to see that Nadja does have protective feelings on Nandor and doesn't like to see him get hurt, and tried to like proactively help. Guillermo was kind of the other kind of where he's kind of like obsessive with Nandor and was like being like, oh shit, because of course, Gail's now back in his life, and he's got, like, all this Bob Seger stuff. He gets her, like, favorite kind of strawberry yogurt crunch kind of thing. And, oh, God, it's kind of nuts that not just like, hey, listen, I also kind of need help with the Vampiric Council because we have to, like, mess with the webpage. And I'm like, I understand trying to do web design, and we see what theirs looks like. It's like, oh, Jesus. Some pretty gnarly fucking shit. And of course she's trying to get him to like help her out with like the font. She's like, this kind of gothic one would be a little bit too on the nose, but he's like focused completely on Gail. She's coming over. And they kind of walk in on them. Nandor is pantsless when you think about it. A lot in this episode. It's like, alright, go for it, man. And they're just like jigging out to like Bob Seger and shit. And of course, Guillermo's got the engagement ring, so Nandor kind of like leaves to try and figure out what's going on with that. And he's watching Twilight, and he gives it to him, but he's still trying to get Nadja to kind of like get her to like stop messing with him. And Gail's like, oh yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, it's like sardines. It's an acquired taste. You eat it for like a month or whatnot, and they're like, oh, that sucks. Then a couple years later, it's like, why did I stop eating these sardines? It's like, okay, that's not a good way to kind of look at a person. Now, granted, sometimes relationships just don't work out, but you don't use someone as like a food thing because people have feelings. And to the contrary, unless we're in some kind of weird thing where like food at the time of consumption usually doesn't have feelings. Though granted, it would be interesting for that kind of thing to be done with the vampires, but they just don't give a shit. So she thinks it's like Thursday, but not just like, no, it's Saturday. And she's trying to freak out, run, and of course she runs outside. We see the full moon, and we find out that she's a werewolf. Not just like, the fuck is up with this shit? What the fuck, my friend? And of course, everybody kind of like gets into it with Nandor about what's going on. Guillermo is trying to like make himself be on Nandor's side because he's possessive of Nandor and definitely has feelings for him. Now, granted, he's got feelings because he wants him to turn him into a vampire. It seems that like we're going along the route that he has more kind of romantic feelings, which will be interesting to kind of see if they kind of like hit out on that way, because he very came across as like a jealous, possessive motherfucker in this episode in regards to his relationship with Nandor. So before we go a little bit further in that, as they're like arguing with each other, we had also seen that Colin and Laszlo were in the library, and Colin was trying to like look up and see what was going on with energy vampires, but is seeing just main stuff with just vampires. And Laszlo kind of pops down, and it's like, wait a minute, look at that book. And of course, it's the kind of book that Laszlo would be into. He's like, hey, they never made a hardback on that one. Pulls it out, and we see that his jalopy that he had, that there was only like 4 ever made, and then he gets into the thing of like, yeah, the other one, the other was given to Henry Ford, and then the other one, then when he was done, it was given to his hero Mussolini. It's like, interesting. And that it was a car that was both gasoline powered and coal powered, as Colin is like, a hybrid. And they're kind of like working with each other because, well, Colin feels bad for Laszlo because Nadja's been doing more stuff with the Vampire Council and thinks that he's kind of lonely. And Laszlo thinks the same way of them. And it's like, they're kind of being assholes towards each other a little bit, but it's cool to kind of see them interact and do their own thing. I love it when you get into a portion of a show and you get like 2 characters that normally aren't put together, and then kind of see what kind of situations kind of hammer out when you do get them together outside of their usual kind of ways that they're utilized. And it's like, okay, but it's a good thing to see that, yeah, even though they're both assholes to like each other and to other people, they had like, hey, I kind of feel bad for him and I kind of want to spend some time with him. But evidently the vampiric... Okay. I have to hand it to him for this joke. And because of the execution and the setup and everything, because the Vampiric Council took this car from Laszlo. 1, because he's not really that great of a driver. And 2, he was transporting minors across state lines. And we are shown that he was transporting actual minors, pickaxe motherfuckers, across state lines. And that's what it was. It's like, even with Laszlo, you would think it would sometimes be the other kind of thing as well. And it's just like, that kind of wordplay, top tier, because you had to figure out how to do it. You're like, okay. And the Vampire Council was like, yeah, screw this. So they're trying to figure out how to get the car out. And he keeps running over Colin, and it's just, I don't know what it was about it. It was just fucking hilarious to be like, Colin's like, yeah, I was back there. And he's like, oh yeah, reflection, couldn't see in the mirror. It's like, yeah, you don't have a reflection. I fucking do. And he's like, all right, fine. And then he's trying to do it, and he goes, boom, and slams him frontwise. It's like, oh god. So they're thinking of the only way to get this out is to disassemble it. And Colin was taking notes, and evidently he's like, I don't know, you called that the Wahobajiggy or something like that. He's like, you're good. So they're having fun with each other, pretty much taking this car apart and then trying to rebuild it outside. They try and take the parts out, and they're smashing against all this shit, and I'm just like, oh god. And it pays off. As they get it outside, they get it all fixed up, and then the advisor to the Vampire Council is like, what the fuck is up with you motherfuckers? You destroyed priceless artifacts and we're just being fucking assholes. It's like, how else were we supposed to get it out? Oh, I don't know. How about the giant fucking red button over here? Boom. Mechanical garage door. It's like, whatever. Well, yeah, but that's on the outside. Hell, how about this other fucking giant red button here? She closes it. And she's like, fine. Fuck it, whatever. I gotta deal with the insurance people. It's gonna be such a headache. And I'm like, it was great because we saw the great kind of character development with them, and we get the bonus character development of the advisor having to deal with these assholes. And just, yeah, Laszlo, we understand. And even though the Vampiric Council seems to be kind of behind the times on certain things, because they did notify you through VHS tape that you guys were on the Vampiric Council, but that's because you didn't answer their ravens or answer their telephone calls. You could have kind of looked around to kind of see if there was a fucking garage door to get out. It's like, because Laszlo is so arrogant that he thought that they built the fucking thing around the car. It's like, oh shit. He's like, alright, you want to take it for a drive? And they just pour gasoline on the engine, they light it up, Colin's on fire, he's like, ah shit, I'm on fire. It's like, nah, it's fine, I'm okay. So that kind of needs to be dovetailed into, that comes important in the end. They're talking about, alright, fine, we gotta kind of deal with this, we gotta talk to the Werewolf Club, which is the same kind of pack that we dealt with the Circuit City incident. They even bring that up, and they kind of apologize and everything, and it's kind of like, kind of crazy. They're kind of wary of them. The vampires are wary of them as well. But then we also see that Gail is with this Anton dude, and that evidently she just goes around and uses people, and she got turned into a werewolf here, and is just pretty much dealing with it. And then Guillermo is kind of pissed off and like, hey, I'm not just his bodyguard, I'm his heart guard. And then comes the other great joke where they're like, oh yeah, they're werewolves. He's like, guys, you gotta take your heart guard or you get worms. And I'm like, I did not expect that to happen that way, but I'm like, holy shit. Would werewolves need to take that shit? And would it be useful? And if it is, holy shit, that's fucking great. That's like, huh, you might be a mythical creature, but you gotta deal with fucking worms, so you gotta take that heart guard. It's like, oh god. Because I kind of got a little bit of cringe with Guillermo going that way. I'm like, okay, I understand it comes from a good place. And then they just went even further with that. I'm like, yep, that was good. So Guillermo then proposes to settle this, instead of fighting each other to death, the Twilight Way with a kickball game in the snow. And more hilarity ensues. Now, granted, I like kickball. It's weird. It's pretty nice. I mean, granted, I haven't like actually done shit with kickball since like did a little bit in high school. Mainly that was like in elementary school. Yes, I'm a dated ass old dinosaur motherfucker. But kickball was I'm seeing werewolves and vampires try and do their differences with kickball. And this was another great instance showcasing what they're able to do with their effects and the different kind of powers, because we see Nandor pretty much do a nice kick and get around and everything. We see the werewolves trying to keep on task, but sometimes like burying the ball or whatnot. Laszlo kicking it, going in his bat form, popping back up like, what? And we see that Nadja's still getting shit because they think that she doesn't like her because she's a woman and everything. Like, I don't hate her! Kicks it. What to do? Beams her in the fucking head and kills her. Like, dead as a fucking doornail. I'm like, ah, shit! Holy fuck. That took a turn. So Nandor's like, alright, I'm gonna turn her into a vampire. And she's like, oh yeah, what fucking happened? He's like, will you be my vampire bride forever? And she's like, nah. I mean, now we're eternity, I'll come back and like fucking do some shit, but oh yeah, I gotta get on a flight because of my daughter. I'm like, you just got turned into a vampire, lady. Never mind the fact that you kind of cross the streams and shit, so we don't even know what like a vampire werewolf hybrid kind of works with in here. So it'll be interesting to see that as she then tries to turn into a bat / wolf thing, and she's like, whoa, it's like, holy fucking shit, my bro, whoa, and everybody's kind of dodging that shit. It's like, all right, that's kind of freaky. We then end, and it's like, hey, yeah, look, I got my jalopy back. You guys kind of want to go for a spin? So they get Nadja and Nandor in there. They got Guillermo in the back. They start walking, and we see, of course, the werewolves are following it because it's a car, and they like chase them. We even saw that teed up as they confronted the werewolf pack before, and it's like, ah, shit. This was a good episode for me. I really enjoyed it, and the jokes flowed very well and organically, and the payoffs and timings just fucking hit for me. It just worked so well. Normally you got your A and your B. Sometimes they intersect, sometimes they don't. But this show has a good record of being able to effectively interweave those kind of stories together, where they don't like fight each other. They complement each other very well, while also delivering really good character development and just funny fucking situations. So I just really like this episode a lot, and I can't wait to see what other crazy-ass shenanigans ensue. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.